All right, welcome Anatomy and Physiology. I want to go through the week at a glance with you. This is posted on your stream page of your Google Classroom as well as shared on Parent Square. I want to draw your attention to this information up at the top just to make clear what our targets are and why we're doing what we're doing. So this week's learning targets or intentions are that you should be able to list and describe the major requirements of organisms for life. So this is the section in your PowerPoint about metabolism, reproduction, homeostasis. Be able to explain the importance of homeostasis to survival. So when we are not maintaining a stable internal condition, we are sick. So think about our normal temperature, for example, is one of the ways that we're going to determine whether you can come in or out of a building right now, right? So 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit is that stable set point. And if you're above that, you have a fever and you are not able to maintain it because you are sick. So number two, explain the importance of this homeostasis to survival. And you should have watched a video on this. There were two options on that for those of you not able to access the one from BBC. There was another kind of more educational one to watch on it. And number three, describe the parts or the mechanism. So how does this work? How does your body do this? So from receiving a signal from a receptor all the way to your brain having to process it, to sending out a message from your brain that says, okay, now do this, sweat, shiver, contract this muscle. What does your body have to do now to keep you stable? So that is number three. On your tasks and assessments, I'm going to be having you do background notes on homeostasis. So what I mean by background notes is in a lab notebook or in your digital notebook, whichever mode you are using, you are going to start taking notes on anything related to homeostasis from your chapter readings. So my labs will always start with learning something first and trying to understand it and then asking a question about it. So your first task in this lab investigation design is that you're going to take some notes on it. Second thing is you're going to do some Kahoot learning checks so that we know where you're at before you actually take your Chapter 1 test. And then number three, take a look at the Smart Book Chapter 1. So I am going to have a separate optional video about using that ebook. It looks like some of you are struggling to find the case studies and find the different features of the book itself. So I'm going to walk you through kind of the parts of that book I want to use. And I think the parts of that book we are not going to use much because it involves printing paper and it's not interactive. There's plenty out there that is interactive that we can use from other sources. And then your success criteria. So how do we know that you've met the goals of the week? I want you to be able to design and plan an investigation with your peers. So we're going to lead into understanding homeostasis by testing it on your own body, some parameter of your stable internal condition. There's lots of them, so we'll do a Jamboard and kind of brainstorm different things that are going on in your body that you could monitor. Number two, getting 80% of your Kahoot questions answered correctly. There's another sign of success that you're starting to get your learning targets understood. And number three, are you able to demonstrate your body regions, body cavities, and organ knowledge through different things, from the whiteboard, from the Kahoots, from quizzes? So are you demonstrating that knowledge of those topics while you're doing the activities? All right, and then let's go down here to the day one live Zoom agenda. We're going to try Scribio. Scribio doesn't work well, then we'll do a different way of going over your key terms. Scribio is just another activity that allows us to look at vocab. We'll do a Kahoot learning check on Chapter 1 to see how you're doing on some of these targets like body regions, body cavities, organ systems. And then we're going to really get into a topic about science literacy. So your first chapter is also about the nature of science. The preview goes through all of this idea of how the methods of science help us understand the world around us. So we're going to do some Jamboard on what does that mean. Okay? What are the things that allow us to know that a claim made in social media, made by a friend, made wherever you happen to see it, is something that is scientifically reliable. So we're going to do this through an activity called fact or fiction. So if you click on fact or fiction, which is also on your Google Classroom, but I hyperlink things to your Week at a Glance as well. Up to 4 of you will sign up for a claim. You are each going to bring in different articles, though, that either support or reject that claim that you think are scientifically sound. Then you're going to challenge each other to be critical consumers of information. So one of the new ed puzzles that we're going to go live with is a workshop that I took 2 parts of and broke it down into pieces so we could practice this skill. It is not easy. Most of our society does not do this skill well. So we are going to practice it all year long. So whenever we get a new unit, we will look at claims that I hear about things like your nutrition and digestion, or I hear about your immune system. This first one is going to be in general, just claims, especially ones in the last 6 months. You do not have to do one of these coronavirus ones, but that's what these first few are about. If you want, you can scroll down. You're going to see some other ones we've done. Teenage brains have greater connectivity between neurons than any other time in life. There's one that has more to do with our next chapter on the integumentary system about tanning beds, which is your skin, right? Looking at that impact. So scroll through these, and all you're going to do is say, okay, I want to know if what my mom always told me was a true statement: to feed a cold and starve a fever. Is that really what I should do when I'm sick? So if I have a cold, I should still continue eating. But if I have a fever, I should stop eating and sleep, okay, or drink orange juice, okay? So I would put my name, if I'm in period 5, here. And then at least hopefully 3 or 4 people also join me, because the more information you have and different articles you have, the more of a discussion, the more likely you are to be able to reject or support the claim. And then we're eventually going to get into, okay, now if we find evidence for these claims or against these claims, who cares? Like how does that change our behavior? So what will we do differently if we find out that tanning beds are a route to cancer? Okay, especially for teenagers. What's going on there? So is there science behind that statement or not? So that is one of our activities for this week. I'm also going to, like I said, talk about the SMART book for chapter 1. I do not expect you to do whatever that 5 hours, 176 questions was a huge thing. I just want us to spend about 20 minutes at home when you are working by yourself on it, and see if you find it valuable for understanding the topics. Day 2, you have some more Kahoots to check in. Now, I want you to be aware that you can do these Kahoots at any time. So if you want to practice them before class, you are more than welcome to do that. So there's one on homeostasis. These are just other ones on chapter 1 topics. There's probably one on body cavities and one on body regions. I might have put one on organ systems. I have them. I have lots of these that you can also find on your classroom webpage under useful links. And then we're going to talk about making your posters, where you're going to tell me what claim you signed up for fact or fiction. And then you're going to start having time to go through the evidence that your group finds. I'm going to slow this down a little bit this year, though, because the number one step that almost everyone doesn't do correctly is picking out the article to begin with. So the Go Live Ed puzzles that I'll be doing in class for my workshop I took on information literacy is going to go through, how do you do that? How do you figure out if what you're looking at on the interwebs is actually good science? So we'll go through those both day 1 and day 2. And then we'll go ahead and grab hold of articles and try to find some to discuss the following week. A reminder, continue to work through that online textbook work. So keep at the SMART books and keep reviewing. This particular chapter is super heavy in Latin and Greek terms that are all new. So this chapter probably has 5 to 10 times what we're going to see in other chapters as far as new vocab. Right, on your on-demand day, watch your Week at a Glance expectation video. That's this. Watch 2 ed puzzles and start adding background notes. So start taking some notes on homeostasis in a separate lab notebook or on a separate tab of your digital notebook about homeostasis. It is section 1.5 in your ebook. So remember that we're going to build our background knowledge of what this term means before we ask a good question for a lab. And then on demand agenda day 2, watch another 2 ed puzzles. Start recording your thoughts about a question that you could ask. Don't worry about experimental design. I want to brainstorm this together. So collect on our Zoom live session, it says to test homeostasis. So I don't think we're going to be there yet on demand day 2. I think we're going to still be working on our fact or fiction. So I'm going to modify that because I want to work with you a lot more about how to design this experiment. So that's all I have for week 1. On demand day 2, I think we're going to focus more on those finding that fact or fiction